You're not being selfish when you set boundaries. It's stewardship. When you guard your heart and your energy and your time and your money and your resources and your schedule and your passions, and when you guard your very heart, you're not being selfish. You're being a good steward of that which God has given you.
Are you stewarding your life well as a leader? I'm Ken Powell, host of FCCI's Pathway to Purpose podcast, and on this episode, we are the beneficiaries of the leadership insights of Dr. John Townsend. When he spoke at an FCCI conference many years ago, he was delivering timeless concepts that are critical as you evaluate your leadership tactics and pursue steps toward improvement for the sake of your team, your business, and God's calling on your life. Well, think about this. Are you playing injured in your business? Do you realize that you're maybe not helping your team so much as an injured player? Do you know how to recognize if you're injured, and do you know how to get healthy? Well, as I sit in my studio recording this podcast, it's November 30th, and like most of you, I'm looking ahead to the new year and prayerfully considering how I can step more fully into God's calling on my life and steward the gifts and talents He's given me for His glory. And to that end, let me encourage you to consider participating in an FCCI business leadership group on a regular basis. I facilitate 4 FCCI online Zoom groups on a weekly basis, and we have groups meeting online and in local markets around the world. Being engaged in an FCCI BLG can serve as a highly beneficial strategy to achieve the goals that you have for the kingdom vision God's put on your heart through your business venture. You can learn more at fcci.org. Let's get into the podcast as Dr. Townsend pulls from Proverbs 4:23 as he shares strategic practices that will help you guard your heart and protect the wellspring of life that you must steward well to reach your full potential as a kingdom business leader.
In leadership and in organizational work, there is an automatic hat you wear by virtue of somebody that gave you that hat. Whether you're a CEO or an executive, small business owner, even minister or pastor, NGO, there's a hat you wear that you've been delegated that hat to. And the very nature of that hat says that somebody somewhere in your organization is going to put you in the God place, put you in the God role. And by the God role, what I mean is expect you to take care of that which they cannot take care of. And there's the problem, is in leadership, it's a heavy load. But it's a heavy load with limits to it. And when you give into the pressure for someone to say, my performance issue is your problem, because I've got no job, no assets, no dreams. My cultural issue is your problem. My can't get it done issue is your problem. My attitude is your problem. Fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it. What happens is the leadership hat becomes a prison. And I work with lots of leaders that are very, very high capacity, high performing people. They have a great faith. They have great abilities. They have great dreams, visions. They have great strengths. But there's something in them that they've allowed that hat to become a prison. And what happens is that you begin to disobey some biblical laws of physics and functioning about how we're supposed to operate. Because what the Bible teaches is that we're supposed to have limits. We're supposed to have boundaries. Jesus said in Matthew 5, let your yes be yes. And what else? Let your no be no. My experience with leadership, just over the years, has kind of been overwhelming, that leaders are trained to say yes. Take on the task. Take on the mission. Take on the mandate, the initiative, the project, the BHAG, the stretch goal. because you guys are wired that way. You know, you're wired for challenge. It's exciting. You like to do things that you can't do. You like to stretch beyond yourself. And that's a great part of being a leader. And if a person can't stretch beyond themselves, they probably shouldn't be a leader, because it's a hat that stretches you. And that's good. And it brings endorphins and energy and excitement. And you wake up in the morning, you know, ready to go. But there's a point. There's a point where you have to say, no, this isn't me. This isn't what I should be doing. And the leader that doesn't do that is basically in some kind of jeopardy, some kind of trouble. I'll get people sometimes I'm working with that started life on, you know, in their mid-20s, ready to go, grabbed the MBA, bought the business, and they're just excited. And then in their 40s, sometimes mid to late 40s or so, they'll start to feel the energy go away. Like, kind of dreading this, kind of burnout feeling, like where's the excitement? And they'll come in feeling really guilty, like, gosh, am I not really serious about this anymore? Do I need just to get my mojo up? Do I need to go work out more or whatever? And we'll do the breakdown of their life, and we'll find out, no, it's not a mojo issue, and it's not a you're not working out issue, and it's not a you're not praying enough issue. You know what it is? Is you don't have a no muscle. You don't, you know, you got your yes muscle that works right here. I'll take care of it, no problem. Yep, I'll be there for you. But your no muscle's broken. And when we address the no muscle, yes be yes, no be no, things start to change. So my takeaway for us today in this time is that you'll have a no muscle, or a better no muscle, or the beginnings of a no muscle, so that you can feel better about the energy you need, the vision you need, all the people skills you need. It works out. It's a great proverb, chapter 4, verse 23. And Solomon tells us, above all, guard your heart, for from it flow the wellsprings of life. Above all, guard your heart. Now, I don't know about you, but whenever I read in the Bible and it says the words above all right beside something else, I kind of pay attention, because the whole Bible is supposed to be highlighted. You better highlight the highlighted part here. When God says above all, you pay attention. And he says, guard your heart. And what that passage means is, this is about a stewardship of your life. It's about self-care. It's about taking ownership of your passion and your dream and that thing that started you working in the first place, and saying, I'm putting my energy into that, and it's saying, I've got to protect that, because leaders don't protect themselves. I was working with an organization recently, and they had a CEO founder who was a real visionary person. I had a lot of respect for him, and I asked his team, how's he going? I asked his exec team, how's he doing? Because he'd had some losses, some personal losses, and they were devastating losses, and I was concerned. And I knew that he was a hard worker and a hard driver and a good man, but it had some big losses. I said, how's he doing? They said, he's not doing well. And I said, well, yeah, he's had big losses, personal losses. I said, is he getting some help? Is he taking some time off? Is he getting some support? And they said, no. And I said, I don't get it. I mean, he's had some bad stuff happen to him. Where's the taking time off, and where's the support and counseling? And they said, we asked him about that. They said, he told us he prefers to play injured. Think about that. And I said, I knew the expectation, because when people say that, it sort of sounds kind of holy and spiritual. Like, what a martyr, what a giver. And I'm kind of a physics guy. I think about the physics of the situation. I said, well, it sounds great, but I see a problem. And they said, what do you mean? I mean, gosh, you know, he's on the field playing injured. I said, what about the team? What about the team when he plays injured and he gets another hit? What about the team that he loves when he's losing innovation, when he's losing power, when he's losing emotional strength. I said, this is very, very common. I want you to tell him this. It's very, very common for leaders to have the S called selfishness and say, if I've got a struggle, if I've got to say no, that's selfish. I can never say no. I said, he needs to change his S to another S. You're not being selfish when you set boundaries, when you say, I need to say no to this meeting and I need to let this person down. You're not, that's the wrong S. The S is not selfishness. You know what the S is? It's stewardship. It's stewardship. When you guard your heart and your energy and your time and your money and your resources and your schedule and your passions, and when you guard your very heart, you're not being selfish, guys. You're being a good steward of that which God has given you. And if you fail in that second S, you run yourself at risk. You run yourself at risk of never reaching the potential that God put you here for, whether that be an IT company or a paperclip company or a manufacturing company or an NGO. You run the risk of never getting there. So change the S in your head from this is not about selfish, selfish, selfish. This is about steward, steward, steward. The person that sets good boundaries lives to fight another day and give another day and strategize another day and dream another day. When you finally get that no muscle going, then all of a sudden you find, goodness gracious, I want to give more. I have new innovative ideas. I dreamed some dreams. I challenged my team. I connected in great ways. We got the strat plan done. Boundaries aren't about me, me, me. They're about the mission, mission, mission. All right? So, I wanted to give you a couple of sort of basic principles of operation on how boundaries work in leadership. There are really several working principles. And I want to just let you have them and they have operational sort of working out. The first one is that boundaries are about you saying no to the good for the best. Boundaries are about you saying no to good things for the best things. See, if I was to say, okay, guys, leadership conference, say no to doing crack cocaine. You go, well, yeah, that was really valuable. Never thought about that. That's saying no to the bad. Boundaries about saying no to someone barging in your room with a machete. Oh, great, revolutionary. We all know we're supposed to say no to the bad things and the toxic things and the telemarketers at 6 p.m. If you're still taking that telemarketer call at 6 p.m., you got real problems. You better really need a no muscle. But boundaries are about saying no to the good. For example, guy I was working with, when I looked at his operation, they were growing at they were growing at a good clip, maybe an 18% clip, a manufacturing company in the Midwest. Probably $18, $20 million, just good business. He's a good guy. But when we looked at it, I said, how are you spending your time? Because 18% is good. And he said, well, here's what I do. And I walked through his day with him. We just kind of did the walkthrough. And I found out that his management team, whenever they would have a conflict with each other, they did not have the social skills or the relational skills or the leadership skills to work out things. So ops is arguing with the plant's arguing with HR, HR's arguing with marketing. And guess where they went because they couldn't get along? This is not rocket science. Huh? They went to the CEO. And he'd have to manage the kids. Like, Sally said, you took my transformer, and Billy said, no, you took my dinosaur. And they're yelling at the dad, right? So they had to have these meetings. And I looked at his day, and his day is taken up with all these meetings with the kids. And I said, you got a problem here. He said, well, they need me. I said, that's the problem. They're good, and you're good. And I'm sure you're working out problems, but is it the best use of your time? He said, but they can't do this. I said, that's the problem. I said, I think you need to frustrate their need to make you their father. And he hadn't wrestled with that, but look at them, they can't get along. I said, we'll get training for that. Conflict training, how to work out issues, communication training. I said, but right now, you're doing good things with them because they look to you to solve their problems. But what are you not spending your time on? He said, oh my gosh, I never vision anymore. I never dream of the next business dev. I never dream of the next company, or I never dream about that great alliance I want to have with somebody across the world. He says, I'm keeping the kids working together. So what we did is we set up a way for them to start to solve their own problems. And then instead of having a meeting with Sally and then a meeting with Sam and then a meeting with both Sally and Sam, how many of you ever done that? I've done it a million times, right? Okay, I'm the only one. So all of a sudden, we gave him a boundary so that he gave up a good thing for the best thing. And because here's the point, guys, you will constantly, through your entire career, be given pressure by other people to give up the best for the good. And that's not their problem. It's not Sally's problem. It's not Sam's problem. It's your problem. Why? Because you wear the leader hat. And it's a good hat. And by nature of the psychology of it, they're going to look to you to solve things and to give them a shortcut so they don't have to work out stuff. And it's your job to say, this is not the best use of time. Okay? So the first thing is, begin to do a kind of an R&D on yourself. Am I spending time doing the good things? Am I spending time doing the best things? The second one is, sometimes we need boundaries on our own selves, boundaries on our own desires, because we're all a little bit ADD. Every leader I know has got a little tad of ADD. We all like bright, shiny objects. And we're always distracted by the next cool thing that came down the pike, or the great tactical thing, or some great idea, and we always want to do everything. I call groups like you guys happy workaholics. Because you're not a workaholic because you have a horrible life and life is miserable. You're just kind of like my Labrador Retriever. You don't know when to stop. You go and go and go, and you stay up too late, and you do too many things, and you say, oh, I can do that too. And I'm sort of a happy workaholic too. And I don't have those pain sensors in me. My lab doesn't have pain sensors. That's what labs are labs. They don't feel pain. Everything's having fun. Just ran 14 miles, have some more fun. They don't feel it. And happy workaholics like you guys just don't feel it. And so you wake up going, boy, I didn't get to anything because I got distracted by all the cool, bright, shiny objects. I found out that I was a happy workaholic, and I had to set up systems that were what I call external boundaries for me. External boundaries mean I had to set up people outside my skin to be a no for me when I don't have a no. Accountability systems. I'll give an example. I found out that if a company called me in Baltimore and said, can you work with us on Tuesday? And a company in Seattle called me and said, can you work with us on Wednesday? I would go, one word, red eye. Problem solved. That's what God created red eyes. And then I'd wonder why I was so tired and cranky. And my wife says, what's wrong with you? I don't know. I'm enjoying what I do. I'm a happy workaholic. So we found out what happened. So I went to my administrative assistant, and I said, you need to be a boundary for me because I'm a happy workaholic. I'm out of control. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to give you parameters of my work. When my first appointment is in the morning, and when my last appointment is, and when I can travel, when I need to be home, and all this complicated algorithm. I said, here's my life parameters, and it's your job to stop me. She goes, I don't want to stop you. I said, I can't. You're now my external boundary. Sort of like I had to tie myself to a tree, and she's the tree. Because I like bright, shiny objects. So she said, I'm uncomfortable with this. I said, well, I am too. But I take things I don't want to take because I get real excited and I like bright, shiny objects. She said, okay. So we tested out the theory. So an opportunity came along, and it was outside the parameters. It was really exciting because somebody in Baltimore wanted me on Tuesday and somebody in Seattle on Wednesday. And there's only one answer to that. And what's the answer? Red eye. So I went to her and said, yeah, we're going to do Seattle. She goes, no, you're not. I said, you work for me. She goes, wait a minute. Don't you remember that conversation? I said, what conversation? She goes, you said I'm your external boundary and you gave me authority to say it wasn't in the parameters that you came up with. I went, good job. She said, is that what you want to do? I went, yeah, it's what I want to do. So now she's one of many systems I have set up. One of them's also called a wife. That one's not as much fun. But I had to set up these external boundaries because I like bright, shiny objects. And you know it works. Because then I had to go back and tell the other company, can we kick the can down the road? Or the schedule isn't working. And it was very painful because I want to do everything. Some of you guys are like that. And you may need to submit yourself to some kind of accountability system beyond yourself. Watch out for your tendency to be a happy workaholic. You want to be a long-termer. You want to be doing the mission and the vision and the passion the rest of your career. It's a good thing. The next way is to learn how to look people in the face and disappoint them. Hard leadership ability. Because leaders, by our very nature, we're yes people. I can do it, no problem, can do, job done, you know. And to look at somebody and say, not the right time, doesn't work for me. You know what I found this is the hardest for? Is for people that are your directs. When I'm working with an organization, I'll go to the directs and say, how are they doing? And they'll say, well, they say yes, but they mean no. It's very hard to let down your directs. I was working with a guy, and he had a 360 done on himself. Anybody ever had a 360 done on yourself? Boy, you might as well do your own dental work. My goodness. Because it's anonymous, and they tell you the truth and all that horrible stuff. But he was a great guy. He had 7 directs. He was an executive in a firm that was doing very well. He had 7 directs. Busy guy. And he was the guy that loved his people. He would take a bullet for his people. I mean, the real kind of leader you want to be. He knew the names of the spouse, and they knew their kids' names, and when they were sick, went to the hospital. I mean, the real deal. Authentically caring. So he gets his 360 results. He comes to him, and he's devastated because he's got low scores. And I said, that's a head scratcher. I mean, you're just such a great guy. You love your people. Why you got low scores? He says, I don't know. I said, well, this is R&D time. Go back to your people, sit down, have a meeting, and say, I want to learn from this. It's okay. Comes back about 3 weeks later, and he goes, I get it. And I said, okay, what's up? He said, they told me, you won't believe this. They said, we don't trust you. We don't trust you. And he went, what are you talking about? I know your spouse's names. I've been to your homes. I'm there for you when you're in hospital. What do you mean you don't trust? They went, wait a minute. We trust the loving yes side of you because you're there. But when there's bad news and we're not performing right or you're not happy with us, where are you? You're out there and you don't say anything and you pull away and you're kind of upset. And we hear it from other people. We call it, in psychology, we call it the triangle. There's a triangle there. And you went and told person B, and then person B tells person C, but we never hear from you because you don't like to deliver bad news. He didn't like to deliver his no muscle. And I said to him, is that true? And he goes, unfortunately, that's true. I'm a great yes guy. I inspire the troops. I get them jacked up. But to tell them bad news, like I can't do this, or we've got a performance issue, or you've got a performance issue, he says, that's hard for me. And I said, well, that's a leadership issue. Long story short, the reason we dug down and deeper into his life, the reason that he was good with good news and not very good with bad news, he grew up in a family with an alcoholic, violent father. And if you understand the importance of your childhood in leadership, The research is all over the map that you better pay attention to your childhood if you want to be a high performer, because it matters. It matters. Jesus said in Matthew 7, look at the tree and look at the fruit. And there's a tree there underneath that fruit, guys, and if you don't pay attention to that, it's an issue. And that alcoholic, violent father, every time this executive as a little boy would try to say no, give bad news, set a boundary, say, I disagree, I don't like that, his dad would just be tough sledding. Tough sledding. So what he learned was what we call, he learned to have indirect communication. So when he wanted something, instead of going to somebody and saying, hey, I got to speak the truth in love here. We got a money problem, we got an attitude problem, we got a performance problem. He did end runs. He learned how to be indirect and kind of manipulative and sort of like keep everybody happy and do other stuff. Did a lot of sort of backwards communication. And I said, you're never going to be the leader that you need to be unless you do the principle of speaking the truth in love. So he had to do a lot of work. Had to face his demons. Had to deal with that abusive father in his head. And it worked. And he came out and became a loving, honest guy who deeply cared for his troops, but he could do a straight eyeball-to-eyeball confrontive conversation. Guess what happened 6 months later in his 360s? Scores went up. Because he developed the ability to look people eye to eye and give them tough information. What you find out is you trust somebody that tells you the truth. You trust somebody that tells you the truth. The next principle is take a look at your own fuel. When I work with organizations, and especially with the leadership, I say, where do you get your fuel? Your energy, because you got to have energy to work. And energy comes from several sources. We're supposed to, in a Christian setting, we're supposed to get our energy first from God. God fuels us and directs us and guides us and leads us. So God's a source of power and energy. We're supposed to get it from our vision and our work. Work's supposed to give you energy. It's tiring, but it gives you energy. You get excited when you get home and say, accomplished a lot, slayed some dragons, moved the ball forward. You get energy from your work. You get it from God. You get it from your work. You get energy from sort of the relaxing parts of life. Maybe you're a biker, or maybe you're art or music or sunset walks or horseback riding or whatever. You get energy from fun stuff like that. You get energy from service. All of us should be in service, helping people who can't help themselves, whether it's a mission in Kenya or whether it's kids on the street in LA or, you're mentoring somebody, but we get energy from service. But the one that leaders don't get energy from is other people. Other people. And they don't have the boundaries and the energy to set boundaries because of that. Let me explain that. Leaders are the most isolated people in the world. And I know that sounds strange because you're surrounded with people. But they're the most isolated people in the world. And here's why. Because leaders, when they're around people, are sourcing others, directing and guiding and managing and supporting and developing and strategizing and structuring and all that great stuff you're supposed to do with people you're trying to envision and prepare, right? You're sourcing. Is sourcing input or output? Sourcing is output. It's necessary. It's good. It's what leadership's about. But it's output. And my experience with leaders is that like a magnet, you guys gravitate toward the output sourcing relationships and do not have the input relationships. Where somebody else in a high capacity level is inputting you. Because leaders are more comfortable in the giving position, the sourcing position. You feel valuable, you care, and leaders are horrible at saying, hey, I need to vent. I need 15 minutes. I've had a hard day. Leaders are great givers and really crummy askers for various reasons. Except my Bible says, in James chapter 4, we do not have, because why? We do not ask. We're crummy askers, and we need to repent of being crummy askers. Here's the deal, is it'd be interesting for you to do an audit on the nature of your relationships, and you'll find out either they're just kind of casual barbecue relationships. We all have our casual I've got lots of casual barbecue relationships. I love shallow people. Seriously. I love shallow people who can't go deep because they always know where the best barbecue is. And that's important to me. So I got a bunch of those relationships, and my wife and I hang out with them. But I need those deeper relationships where I learned to say, I just really screwed up today. I need to know that I'm okay. I'm just out of gas. I need somebody to tell me I'm a good person. I just need to tell you that I'm really confused, and I don't need 3 points of advice. I just need you to know you're there for me. Leaders don't do that. Here's what leaders will tell me. Oh, I do all that stuff. I know your energy stuff. I've got God, and I've got my spouse and my lab. I say, well, let's parse that. Let's unpack that. You got God, which we all have to get. You got your spouse. That's great. Glad you got a good marriage. Your lab, that's what they're for. Let me do marriage 101 with you here in a second. If your spouse is the only person who knows your fears, your dreams, your mistakes, your passions, all that stuff, if they're the one person that you go to regularly for that stuff, you have just turned your spouse into a parent. Not kidding. You've just turned your spouse into the life support system of being a dad or a mom. That's not Bible. That's not New Testament relationships. If you look in the New Testament, it says, all the one another's that give us energy, accept one another, love one another, confess to one another, forgive one another, care for one another, comfort one another, one another, one another, one another, one another. You can't do the one another if your spouse is the only person that knows the deepest, darkest parts of you. Can't tell you how many times I'll have that conversation, and then I'll be out walking around in the foyer, and the spouse will come up to me and go, oh my gosh, thank you for saying that. I love them, but I wish they'd get a friend. And the CEO will go, no, I don't do friends. No. I do shallow barbecue. I don't do friends. That's fine. One another, one another, one another. And the reason I say that is because once you've got other people in your life and you move out of isolation so that you can say, can I call you for 8 minutes? I'm having a hard day. And you get over that, I hate to ask, and realize that that's not a problem. All of a sudden, the energy comes in. You can say no. So many leaders don't have good boundaries because they don't have that other energy cell of people. They got their faith straight, they work straight, their service straight, they work out a lot, but they're not asking anybody besides their spouse. Funny thing is, every time I challenge a leader to do this, they do it, and they come back and they go, you won't believe what happened. What happened? People were glad to be with me. They were glad to talk to me. They were like, I'm so glad that you're not Superman or Superwoman. I'm so glad that I can help. And they feel like it's a blessing and an honor. Don't get into the thinking that you're helping anybody but never asking for support. It's actually selfishness. You give people a blessing by asking for support. Good for you, good for them. Learn to be the leader that is not afraid of working with people whom you frustrate. Learn to be a leader who's not afraid of working with people whom you frustrate. Good leaders frustrate people. People have designs on you, and they have needs for you, and they want you to be there all their meetings. And that's where the no muscle, when you come in, it comes in and you go, no, it doesn't work for me. But we got to have you in the sales thing. Can you solve this? And you got to say, yeah, no, that didn't work. I got to do other things. And when you can frustrate other people, the right people, really good things happen. And the reason is this, is that people work at the level of which they are challenged, not at the level of which you resource. People work at the level at which they're challenged, not at which you're resourced. We're supposed to resource our people, make sure they got training and money and time and opportunity. But if you're coming in there because you don't want to frustrate them and solve their problems for them, they never stretch. When you look at like neurological training and all this and all the neurology that's coming out there, they're finding out that the brain is a muscle. They call it neuroplasticity, that if you push the brain to do new things, people get better. It's just like you're working out. But what we do as leaders is we make it comfortable for them because we feel bad, we don't want to discourage them, and this sort of thing. You must frustrate your people. Not in mean ways, but when you give them a directive, here's the goal, here's the quota, here's develop this part, just make these many calls, handle this problem, and they come to you and say, do the shortcut, you've just regressed your people to a child state. Now, your B-level players and your C-level players, it doesn't really matter. They're sort of going to be there. But your rock stars, the ones that are really, you want them to take you to the next level, your rock stars are going to leave. Rock stars that are not challenged will leave because they've got what you've got in there. They need that challenge. They need that push, and they need that kind of, I got to think about it. And so that's why sometimes you have to frustrate them and say, I could probably do this and probably have this meeting, but I think you can handle this. And it's sort of like back when they were a football player when they were 14 years old, and the coach said, I know you're running 100% and I want 120%, right? That's what coaches do. And that kid came up with the extra 20%. When you tell your people that and you frustrate that desire for you to do it for them, all of a sudden they rise to it. They didn't have that stuff in them. Don't be afraid of frustrating your people. Frustration is one of the great things that makes a leader have great leaders. Because here's the deal, guys. Your organization will succeed not just based on you and your own strengths, talents, and ideas, but on the rock stars you're developing. And when you've got the right rock stars, because you've challenged them and you've frustrated them, the sky's the limit. The world needs a leader who is sold out to Christ, 100% for Christ, and lives in reality about money, about performance, about KPIs, about metrics, and their faith is solid and their performance is here, and with really good boundaries, sky's the limit. Don't be afraid of this. That muscle will work for you because God made that muscle. Guard your heart, and everything else happens.
I do pray that you're finding healthy relationships to pour energy and biblical counsel into your role as a kingdom business leader. And if you're seeking those relationships, don't hesitate to reach out to us here at FCCI, where you'll find a wonderful family of Christian business owners who are ready to link arms with you on this journey to operate business as a platform for ministry for God's glory. Do not function in a vacuum. It's just not God's design for you as a business owner or senior leader in your organization. I know that as I journey alongside dozens of business owners on a weekly basis, I'm incredibly encouraged and motivated through those relationships and the ongoing conversations about kingdom business stewardship around the world. Thanks for listening, and may God continue to move you into healthy relationships and encouraging conversations on your pathway to purpose.